At the family gift exchange, my daughter opened a crushed box with a used crayon set inside. My mom smirked. That's what happens when your mom walks away from the family. My sister's kids were opening iPhones. I pulled out a stack of gifts from under the tree. These were for them, I said. They're not anymore. And then I knew something was off when I saw the gift under the tree. It was a tiny, dented box, the wrapping paper barely clinging to the corners like it had been reused. My daughter, Allie, 8 years old and still the kind of kid who thinks Christmas magic is real, picked it up with both hands like it might fall apart if she wasn't careful. She smiled up at me. I didn't smile back. This was our first Christmas since I moved out of my parents' house. After 3 years of living there with Ellie, I finally saved enough to get us a small home. 3 bedrooms, modest yard, but it was mine. Paid for every brick, with double shifts and skipped vacations. When my sister asked if she and her 3 kids could move into the 3rd bedroom, I told her no. Not because I didn't care, but because I needed peace. I wanted to give Ellie the quiet life I never had. The room got quiet as Ellie unwrapped her gift. I swear I heard someone snort. Inside was a half-empty box of crayons. The paper labels were peeled off, some broken in half. The box was greasy. My mom was sitting on the couch, sipping wine like it was just another Sunday. She smirked and said, "That thing that made my stomach drop. That's what happens when your mom walks away from the family." I didn't say anything. My sister's kids were tearing open brand new iPhones, Bluetooth headphones, a damn Nintendo Switch. I looked at Ellie. Her fingers clutched the crushed box like she was trying to convince herself it was still a gift. That's when I got up and walked to the tree. There was a stack of gifts behind it, neatly wrapped, tags with names on them. Michael, Hannah, Ryan, my sister's kids. I had spent weeks buying them expensive, thoughtful gifts, each one hand-picked. I picked up the whole stack and dropped it right in the middle of the living room. "These were for them," I said. "They're not anymore." My mom laughed like I was being dramatic. My sister didn't look up. I walked to the door, called Ellie. She followed without a word. My dad stood up, confused. My mom said something under her breath about how I always had to ruin everything. I didn't answer. I opened the door, the cold hitting us in the face. Behind me, no one moved. No one said, "Merry Christmas." I just told them one thing before I left. Those gifts. I'm returning every single one. Then I closed the door, and that was only the beginning. We drove home in silence. Ellie held the crayon box like it might still turn into something real if she wished hard enough. She didn't cry. That almost made it worse. I stayed up late that night, sitting in the living room, with all those wrapped gifts still in the back seat of my car. I thought about what would have happened if I hadn't gone, if I had just mailed them the presents instead. They'd have taken the gifts, posted thank yous on Facebook, and still handed Ellie that crushed box like a warning. The next morning, I returned everything. The tablet Hannah wanted for digital art, gone. The VR headset Ryan wouldn't shut up about. The limited edition shoes Michael had begged for. I stood in return lines while Mariah Carey played in the background and couples bickered over mixers. One by one, I dropped the receipts and let the money come back. Then I went home and started cutting strings. Spotify removed all users, changed the password. Netflix logged everyone out. Amazon gone. Fesco. Grocery app disabled. The shared cell phone plan transferred it out. I wasn't paying another cent for their Wi-Fi and data, so they could sit around trashing me behind my back. The first message came around 3 p.m. My dad asked if Netflix was down. By 4, my mom texted, saying the groceries never showed up. 5, she called. Left a voicemail saying maybe we'd misunderstood the gift and that Ellie shouldn't be so dramatic. I blocked her number. 2 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. When I finally answered, it was my sister. Her voice was low, tight. She didn't even say hello. She just started talking. "They kicked me out," she said. Mom and Dad. Said I was the reason everything's falling apart. Said I embarrassed the family by letting you come. She was calling from a motel, the kind with flickering signs and vending machines that only take quarters. Her kids were asleep in one bed. She was sitting on the bathroom floor, charging her phone because the outlet near the bed sparked when she tried to use it. I asked if she had anywhere else to go. She didn't. I told her to come here. She paused for a long time. Then she asked if I was serious, if I wasn't just saying it because I felt bad. I said no. I meant it. When they arrived late that night, Ellie opened the door. The kids looked half asleep, dragging backpacks and plastic bags. My sister didn't look like herself. No makeup, no loud opinions, no phone in her hand, just quiet. She sat at the kitchen table while I made tea. Neither of us said much. Eventually, she looked at me and said, "I really didn't know they'd do that to her," meaning Ellie. I nodded. Then she said, "I didn't think they'd do it to me either." And that's when it really hit us both. They'd never been a family. Not really. They were just people who used blood as a leash. But that leash, I was done letting it pull me. And now she was too. Only thing was, our parents weren't done yet. The next few days felt unreal, like we were all walking carefully through a house that might collapse if someone breathed wrong. My sister and her kids settled into the guest room. No complaints, no entitlement. She folded blankets the way our mom used to, tight and precise, like habits never really die. Ellie gave up her room without a word and camped on the couch, acting like it was a fun adventure. I let her. She deserved to feel generous instead of small. We didn't bring up Christmas. Not directly. But it was there in the pauses. In the way my sister watched Ellie like she was replaying that moment in her head over and over. In the way she flinched every time her phone buzzed. Peace lasted exactly 3 days. Then the call started again. Different numbers. Voicemails only. My mom saying my sister was manipulating me now too. That I'd always been gullible. That she hoped I was happy choosing the wrong side. My dad left one where he talked slowly, like he was explaining something to a child. Said families fight. Said I was punishing everyone over a misunderstanding. Said it was time to be reasonable. I saved every message. On the 4th day, my dad showed up. No warning, no text, just him on my porch like he still owned the place. I opened the door halfway. He didn't ask how I was. Didn't ask about Ellie. He just looked inside. Eyes scanning like he was checking inventory. He said the crayon box was meant to teach humility. That kids these days expect too much. That my reaction embarrassed the family. That my sister had poisoned me against them. He said throwing her out was necessary. She needed consequences. I asked him if humiliating my child was also necessary. He shrugged. That's when I knew there was nothing left to save there. I closed the door without yelling, without explaining, without one last plea. Just closed it. When I turned around, my sister was standing in the hallway. She hadn't meant to listen. He always said that. But she had. Her face looked empty. Not angry. She handed me her phone. It was a long message thread with her mom. Screens and screens of it. Blame. Guilt. Accusations. My mom telling her she ruined everything, that she raised her kids wrong, that she made me cruel, that she should be ashamed for choosing me. I didn't know what to say. My sister finally did. They were always going to pick themselves, she said. We just never noticed. That night, after the kids were asleep, we sat at the kitchen table. No phones. No TV. Just 2 cups of tea and the sound of the fridge humming. We talked about things we'd never said out loud. About growing up competing for approval that never stayed. About how love in that house was conditional and temporary. About how Christmas always came with a scoreboard. We didn't forgive each other for everything. Not yet, but we stopped pretending nothing hurt. Somewhere in that conversation, something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly locking into place. We weren't going back. And our parents could feel it. That was the problem, because once they realized they'd lost control of both of us at the same time, they stopped trying to fix things. They started planning how to punish us instead. The next blow came quietly. We woke up to find the water shut off. Not a drop from any faucet. I called the utility company, ready to report an outage. But it wasn't an outage. Someone had called the week before, impersonated me, and asked to cancel the service at this address. I had to go down there in person with ID to fix it. Same with the power. They hadn't cut it yet, but when I checked, there was a pending request to disconnect by the end of the week. I didn't say anything to Ellie. I just made pancakes and ran the bath early while water still trickled out of the pipes. I knew who it was. I didn't have proof, but I didn't need it. Only a handful of people knew the account details, and my parents were two of them. I had trusted them once. Let them help when I moved in. Let them manage the boring stuff to save me time. Now it was being used as a weapon. I spent the afternoon calling every company, changing passwords, setting up security questions. Got the house re-verified under my name only. Locked down everything I'd once left open. When I finally told my sister, she just sat there for a second and said, "They always said if you make your bed, you lie in it. I guess they're hoping we lie in it cold and in the dark." I laughed. For real. Because somehow, it was so absurd, I had to. That was the day the real fallout began. Because that night, while I was finishing dishes, my sister got a call. She stepped outside to take it. 10 minutes later, she came back inside, sat at the table, and didn't say anything for a full minute. Then she looked at me. "They cut me off." I asked, "From what?" "Everything," she said. "Bank accounts frozen. Credit card declined. Dad just texted, 'You're on your own now. Figure it out.'" She didn't cry. She just sat there, staring at the table. They had been paying for her car, her groceries, her health insurance, and just like that, they pulled the plug. She said she begged them to talk, not to make the kids suffer. My mom told her it was natural consequences. The next day, my sister's oldest, Hannah, came into the kitchen with an envelope. She found it stuffed in their backpack. Inside was a letter, a printed one, signed with my parents' names. It said that until her mother repented, she was not to contact them, that they were reevaluating their relationships with all grandchildren, that they were setting boundaries. She's 11. That was when my sister lost it, quietly, in the bathroom, door closed. I heard it anyway, so I took action. I added her to my health plan. I transferred money to her for groceries. I made sure her kids had winter coats. I gave her back a little bit of dignity that our parents had spent years yanking away. She didn't ask. He never would have. But I did it. And when my parents found out, because of course they did, they snapped. Blocked me on everything. Emails, numbers, even Facebook. Sent one last email before that happened. It said, "You chose her, so don't come crying when she ruins you too." I stared at it for a long time. Then I hit delete. And honestly, felt like being unshackled. They thought they were cutting me off, but all they really did was free me. They didn't realize that this story was already moving toward an ending they couldn't control. And that ending was coming faster than they expected. New Year's was 2 days away when I got a text from my aunt out of nowhere. Just one sentence. "Are you really not going to the party?" I stared at it, confused. What party? Then she sent a screenshot of the invitation. A New Year's Eve bash at my parents' house. Full catering. Live DJ. Champagne at midnight. They'd invited everyone. Aunts, uncles, cousins, old neighbors, church friends, everyone but me. I didn't care about being left out. What got me was what came next. My aunt followed up with, "They said you weren't welcome, that you cut the family out, and they're setting boundaries now." I just stared at the screen, standing in the middle of the frozen foods aisle. My daughter was squatting next to the cart, trying to pick between strawberry and mango popsicles. She had no idea her grandparents were rewriting the whole story. It wasn't just the party. It was the story they were telling everyone. They said I stormed out at Christmas without reason. Said I refused to let my sister's kids stay with me, even temporarily, and that I returned all their gifts out of spite. They made me sound like someone unstable, someone dangerous, with a short fuse and a grudge. And the kicker? They told people they had to uninvite me from the New Year's party for everyone's comfort. A few of my cousins bought it, but most didn't. Because that video, the one of Ellie opening the crushed crayon box, was still making the rounds, and it had only picked up more attention. Somebody, and I still don't know who, had posted a longer edit of the moment. It showed my sister's kids with their brand new electronics, then cut to Ellie's face as she pulled out the used crayons. Caption read, "This is how some families treat the ones who choose peace." By the time I got home, my inbox was full. Old friends, distant cousins, even people I hadn't seen since high school. Most of them didn't say much, just variations of, "Saw the video. I'm so sorry. That was cruel." And then one from Carla, my mom's oldest friend, the one who never missed a party, who helped decorate every year and always brought the fancy cheese board. She wrote, "Your parents have been saying a lot, but no one's really listening anymore." They showed their hand. And then, on New Year's Eve, right before midnight, she sent a photo. Their living room, half the lights off. Table set for Trenta. Plates untouched. The DJ never even unpacked, and there they were, sitting on opposite ends of the room, holding glasses no one had toasted with. She added, "Only 4 people came. They left before 10. My parents had tried to flip the story, make themselves the wounded ones. But when everyone saw what they did to an 8-year-old girl, to their own daughter, to the granddaughter who used to make them Christmas cards with glitter glue, it stopped working. People didn't turn against them. They just quietly stepped back. Meanwhile, in my house, we were stringing dollar store lights around the living room. Ellie and my sister's kids made paper hats and noisemakers. We made nachos and root beer floats. My sister brought out a tiny cake she'd baked from scratch, with "New Start" written in frosting that melted a little from the heat of the oven. At midnight, we stood in the middle of the room, counting down over a YouTube livestream, with fireworks we couldn't afford in real life. We all shouted, "Happy New Year!" like we were the only people in the world. And for once, it didn't feel like we were missing anything. We weren't lost. We weren't broken. We weren't abandoned. We were chosen by each other. And I finally realized the truth. They didn't cut me off. They freed me. They isolated themselves. And for the first time, they had to sit in it alone. January 1st was quiet, peaceful in a way I hadn't known holidays could be. No tension, no eggshells, no one waiting to twist a smile into a weapon. We stayed in pajamas most of the day. The kids played board games. My sister helped me clean up the last of the New Year's decorations. At one point, Ellie asked if we were still going to Grandma and Grandpa's for a second Christmas like we usually did. I told her no, that we were starting a new tradition. She didn't look sad, just nodded, and asked if we could make cinnamon rolls instead. By the second week of January, it was clear our parents weren't going to break the silence. Not with me, not with my sister, not even with the kids. They didn't send a single message, not a word. No birthday texts for my sister's youngest, no calls, nothing. But the silence wasn't clean. It wasn't noble. It was performative. They wanted everyone to know they were the ones who cut the cord. They wanted to play the offended party to the end. But that performance, it was falling flat. One by one, their friends started backing away. Some slowly, some suddenly. A few told us directly they just couldn't support what our parents had done. A few others went quiet, but never showed up to their next dinner parties. My aunt, the one who texted me about the party, called one night. She said, "Your mom tried to tell me you and your sister ganged up on her, but I told her no one ganged up on her." She finally just lost control. It's like watching dominoes fall. They'd spent their whole lives trying to look like the perfect family, but now everyone could see what was behind the curtain, and there was no one left to clap. Then something else happened, something none of us saw coming. Ellie came home from school one day with a folded piece of paper in her backpack. Said a woman gave it to her when she was leaving class. It was from my mom. Not mailed, not signed, just typed and printed. It said that I was turning Ellie against her family, that I was feeding my daughter a narrative of division, that I was raising her to be emotionally manipulative, just like her aunt. It ended with, One day she'll resent you for this. They always do. I didn't show it to Ellie. I folded it in half, threw it in the trash, and finally, let the anger leave me. Not because it didn't still burn, but because I knew what it meant. They were out of moves. That was their last play. A desperate attempt to wound me on the way out. But they had already lost. Because we weren't where they left us. We were somewhere better. A few days later, my sister came into the living room with her phone. She'd been offered a part-time job. Something remote. Steady. Nothing big. But enough to start getting on her feet again. She asked if I was okay with her staying a bit longer while she saved for her own place. I told her, this wasn't just my place anymore. It was ours. And as we sat on the porch that evening, kids laughing in the backyard, the sky soft and blue-gray with winter clouds, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not because we had everything figured out. We didn't. Not because it was easy now. It wasn't. But because we'd stopped pretending and finally started choosing each other. Not out of obligation, but because we wanted to. The holidays had started as a war, but they ended in a kind of freedom I didn't know I needed. New Year's came and went. So did the fallout. So did their silence.